Okay, I'm also gonna show the screen. So let's see if you can confirm that for me as well, that you are able to see the screen, and then we'll start the session. So I'm currently sharing the screen now. So can someone or all of you just confirm if you are able to see my screen on your side?
Yes, sir, we are able to see.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So we're gonna go to Brightspace. And once we are on Brightspace, we come to our module, which is Applied Digital Marketing. And here, today we're going to talk about Assessment 2. But before we get to that, let's just go through content and come to the learning content and look at the year plan. So today is the 1st of July, so we are somewhere in this week, whereby we should be discussing chapter 3 and digital modules. But you will realize that we are a little behind because assessment 2 was supposed to actually be due last week Friday according to the year plan. But I think you all aware, or you viewed assessment 2. It is available now and is due next week Friday. Because today we're just going to talk a little bit about that assessment, and if you have any questions regarding it, and then we can clarify that. So if you go to the home page, the easy way to get the assessment, it's right here under announcement. So you will see, like I've indicated, that assessment is on the 9th of July. It's out of 60 marks. And in this assessment, you have to review a research proposal. So reviewing is different than section B. Section B, you develop a research proposal. So what happens here is that you've already in section A, you've already have a research proposal abstract. So if you download the assessment itself here, just quickly download that. I'm just gonna save it on desktop. I already have it. And you go to section A. It says reviewing abstract proposal on digital marketing. Read the research abstract in Annexure A. And if you go down, you've got your Annexure A and you've got that research proposal. So you have to review this research proposal. It's about 3 pages. Review everything, including the references, and indicate. So if you quickly go back to the guidelines, it says, and complete the table below to indicate how the research proposal meet the guidelines for investigating a digital marketing topic, as illustrated in the study guide, page 26. So you will have to actually look at the proposed title and indicate on a scale, you're gonna rate it here. So you must show your ratings as well. So using Word document, you can easily rate it, for example, by highlighting or by bolding. So for example, if maybe I think it's 3, I can just make that color yellow, or easily I can make the whole box just to show how much I rated it. I can put that black color there, and then it will be me saying the proposed title is average. But before you come to the rating, there are certain aspects that you need to look into regarding the proposal title. So if you read the guidelines, once again, it says, as illustrated in the study guide, page 26. So let's quickly go there. And if you go to the content once again, Our study guide should be under here, module guide. And page 26, I'm not gonna download it and view it because it's just few things. So this is the guidelines that you'll be using to develop a research proposal. This is a template basically. Abstract, title, background, rationale, research purpose, methods, material, statistics, ethical aspects, and reference. So it's the same thing that you see as well on the table that they said we should look into when we review our proposal or the abstract. The title, the background, rationale, objectives, and then how did they do the citation and the list of reference. So like I've indicated, before you actually rate, you need to provide motivation for each. So first of all, what you need to do, you need to understand and show that you do understand what actually you are looking for when you review, or what is actually required from students when they provide a research proposal title. So let's quickly have some bullets here to talk about the title, talk about what is needed under background, to talk about and what is needed under rationale, and so on. So now, first thing here is that there are different sources that you can use to motivate your answers regarding all this. You can use a simple Google search engine, for example, and here you say guidelines, or it's up to you how you search it, guidelines for writing a research proposal. There is another one. You see, they will tell you about the guidelines are similar, like background research, but as soon as you go into the source, it will tell you what is needed under guidelines. What we see here, it says it should give a clear indication of the approach or key question. We can also use that to motivate our answers, to say, if we look at that title, does it give us that indication or not? And as soon as you go to the source, you will see they give you some of the information. And once again, this is just a random source that I've chose. You can use so many different sources that tell you how your title should be. In the assignment itself, we suggest or we recommend one of the sources, which it says refer to the guidelines on writing a first quantitative academic article, and that article or those guidelines are published by Gutier in 2007, and they are available on Brightspace. So you can use that as well. Actually, this is more than a recommendation, because you still have to develop a research proposal. And when you develop a research proposal, you'll be using these guidelines. So let's quickly show you how you're going to get this on Brightspace. Article guidelines, they are here next to the study guide. So they are under welcome and introduction as well. So when you quickly click there, it have those guidelines for you, but I'm gonna quickly download this one. And now, when you open them, it's about 87 pages, but however, we're not gonna go through every page here. You're just looking for the one that are applicable to the headings. For example, it tells you in terms of the article. Okay, I've clicked by mistake, sorry. When you look at the table of content, it tells you in terms of the article title what you should be included there. the abstract itself, the keywords, in the introduction, what are the 6 elements of introduction. So as soon as you understand all this, it becomes way easier and much faster to actually evaluate any research proposal. So let's quickly go to what it says about the title. The title with a maximum of 15 words. You see, we've got something there. Then we can evaluate if the title falls within these weights. And we've got the source that tells us this. The title should attract readers' attention. So you'll be using your own perception, whether it attracts your attention, and think about academic or scholars as well, whether if they read the title that is provided, they will actually have some interest in reading the article itself. So let's just use these two for now to show you how you can do it. Maximum of 18 to 15 words. So you go to where you review it. So we can refer to this as length as well. Some of the guidelines also refer to it as the length of the title. And then we're gonna compare it with the one that is provided. So I'm not gonna look at that length. It's just something that you can easily do. So length should be 8 to 15 words. And then now let's evaluate the article. So we can write in this article, the title is 20 words, for example. So I'm just using a random example once again. Is 20 words, and therefore the authors, for example, exceeded the recommended or guidelines, or based on the guidelines, the recommended length. So what does this mean? It simply means that if you have already evaluated the title and then you found that it's not good, it's bad, for example, in this case, I chose the bad, it means I cannot rate them 5. I already know that I've already have one negative comment that I've made regarding the title. So I'm already expecting that I won't see this one, a student rating it 5 if he already has something negative. Automatically, he can rate it 4, as an example, up until he has written all the comments here. But that does not mean, and I must be crystal clear about this, and I need you to understand, that does not mean that what you write underneath here as motivation should only be negative evaluation or where the authors did something wrong. Even where they did something that is good, you also write it down. Let's illustrate that as an example. If you go back to those guidelines, okay, they were open quickly now. If you go back to these guidelines, they talk about many things. For example, they say a title should attract the reader's attention. So let's say you read the title and it does attract the reader's attention. It's written nicely. Let me show you one of the articles that we published in 2017, and when they were reviewing, because what you are doing here as a process is the same process that it's used for publishing articles as well. So it goes to the reviewers, they review it, they tell you what they are happy with and what they are not happy with. So we published one article with Prof. Ruben, one of our master's students, where we say it's organizing. Let's the giant that never sleeps. And then I think it's classification of digital out of home media. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly, instead of searching it here on Scholar, search it on normal search engine. There is one of our articles, Organizing the Giant That Never Sleep, Digital Out of Home Advertising Classification. So if you read an article such as this one, and you look at the title, because this is what they told us, the reviewers, they said, this is quite very catchy. They even recommended some of the words that you see in the title here, because ours was based on the classification, how we can classify digital out of home media. So they indicated things such as it is messy at the moment in the digital out of home media, not the article. In practical world, it is messy and academic, and the scholars, they don't know what belongs where. So we've classified it nicely in this article. So what they've identified is that we are organizing the giant that never sleeps because it's always busy. So you can see such as a title. When you do your evaluation, they said it should be catchy. So I'm going to quickly paste the title here. And let's quickly see the guidelines. So the guidelines, the title should attract readers' attention. We can take that statement as well and say we evaluated the title. It's always better to do it in bullet points, but if you want, you can do it in a paragraph format. It should attract the reader's attention. That's the first thing. So by indicating this first, you do show or illustrate that you know what you're looking for. And based on what you've written and what the article says, and then now you evaluate. So you can indicate here title, for example, and I quote it. Okay, I'll just do it like that. It's very catchy, for example. Makes the reader have desire to read more. Something such as that one. So what it actually means here, I'm trying to illustrate the fact that most of the time, and you are lucky because you are actually the second group to take or to be enrolled under this module. Last year, it was the first group that was enrolled. So you will be learning from their mistakes, from the experience I'm sharing it with you. It happens quite often that when you evaluate, we tend to think that we're only evaluating things that are bad and we write things that are bad here. But even if something is good, we have to write it down because it shows that we understand what we're looking for. So by writing this statement, we have illustrated here that we know we're looking for the article to attract our attention. And when I read it, it did attract my attention. In most cases, students will see something such as this ones, and they will never write it down because they will think that is not part of the evaluation. So I have to emphasize that is part of evaluation. So now, what you've written here, it must be aligned with your rating. So if we quickly use only these two. I'm expecting it that students or someone who's rating it might rate it 4. Because although he wrote 2 comments, one comment was good, the next comment was bad, meaning that they've already lost 1 rating. So under motivation, under each year, you need at least 5 because those 5 will indicate for you how to rate an article. They don't need to be consistent, meaning that there are many guidelines regarding the title beside the length. For example, if you read in the guidelines that I've just shown here, it should be this one. You'll see 2, 4, 6, 7. There's many bullets. So one student might not write about the length, but might still write 5 aspects regarding the remaining items. So I'm not expecting it to be consistent with all of you, that all of you should talk about the length and so on and so on. And I've also illustrated that you also gonna use your search engine and search all these things. And then you can reference that. For example, here I can reference is based according to University of Westminster. And then I can include the page as well. But that's not quite necessary to reference because as soon as it's published and is written, most of the time they are aligned, they are similar to even this one that we are using now. So you continue, you rate that title with 5 elements, and then you come to background. So I'm just gonna add quite few more under each that you should look for that I've read a couple of times and based on the experience and the guidelines. The dependent variable, okay, let's start with the independent. Independent variable should be indicated in the title. The dependent variable should be indicated in the title. The limitations, which is our simple element, our simple unit, basically the location of the target market of our respondents should also be indicated. So research delimitations, which basically refer to limitations, eliminations. So these are research limitations. For example, if you read the title, if it does indicate that this study will be conducted on young adults, that's what we're looking for. So it should show that in the title. For example, if it does show that this will be done in Gauteng, South Africa, that's going to be our location. Dependent variable, usually our dependent variable is our 5S objectives that we looked into chapter 1. So this could be, for example, the title does indicate something such as to sell, to serve customers. So let's say maybe it's about to increase customer satisfaction. That will be to serve. Which is to serve objective. And then let's say maybe our title, we have to link it to increase customer satisfaction. Maybe the case study was looking in terms of the independent variable that they were measuring. These usually are the 8 Ps, which are chapter 2, which is a marketing mix. which is remixed. So let's say that it was saying the effect or the influence. I prefer the word influence, and I also suggest that you stick to the word influence. There is quite a lot of misunderstanding with the word effect and the word the use of the word impact. So the influence, let's use that, the influence of social media, maybe, for example, to increase customer satisfaction. What we see under social media here, we see this one, social media, as being the independent variable. And social media will be under promotion. This promotion element. Under public relations, because you'll remember here you've got sales promotions, you've got things such as advertising and so on. So when you come to independent and dependent variable, you will need to go through your chapters in detail, basically here. And by going through your chapters in detail, it means that under learning content, that's another thing. You've got the chapters. Let's quickly come to chapter 2. Although I'm doing it quite fast, it's always good to show you the source of all those important aspects that are indicated there. So you'll need to understand what variables are. How did they remix all these elements? So in this case, I've used a practical example of promotion. So promotion can be remixed in terms of public relations, and that's where social media is at and customer service websites are at. So you also need to understand the independent variables and the dependent variables based on the research proposal that you are evaluating. There is more reading to this so that you understand, for example, but once you understand, there is less writing. Most of the time we tend to try to flip and it makes it difficult. We tend to spend a lot of time writing and spend less time reading, and that's not a good suggestion. It always makes things difficult. So more reading, then you'll see when you write, you're gonna actually write it faster and less. There is more, once again, that you can use here. So you are not limited, so you need to search and do a literature review about all this. I'm going to quickly share a few under each. Under background, usually it is suggested that it begin the study with an interesting quote. You will see some of these things, they are on those guidelines. So once you have read those guidelines, and then you indicate as well if they did that or they did not do that. Under background, it is suggested that you also define, I know the definitions, that's where they are at. Variables, excuse me, define variables of the study. So the definitions, that's where they will be included. This also helps you in terms of the guidelines, how you're going to do section B when you write a research proposal. There's also more guidelines where they talk about the 6 elements, but the one that I know that is important, which comes to background, that you have to show previous research regarding this. So previous research will include, if your study is about customer satisfaction, what are the other studies saying about customer satisfaction? So here it will be something such as, let's say Mahlangu. And remember, you must be able to reference as well. Let's say I published an article last year, maybe Mahlangu 2020 conducted a study and found that, so it will be sentence similar to such as this one. So previous research regarding satisfaction and so on. There is more. I'm only gonna share these three with you. The rest you're gonna have to read and find them yourself. Under rationale of the study, there are a couple of things that we look into. This is about why is the study important. So we look most of the time for things such as the figures, which are numbers. For example, this could be such as sales or projections, income, revenues regarding the topic. So it could also be projections, which means they are estimated in the next 5 years. It's figures. Okay, I'm just gonna write it past, yeah. Past figures and projections. So what it literally means is that in the past 5 years, how much revenues, e.g. it could be revenues, could be a market share, you will see that under rationale you are writing about why the study is important. So in other words, if a person sees that there is a lot of market share, there is a lot of money made and projections that they can make a lot of money, it shows the importance of the study as well. Under rationale, we also look for market share, revenues, past figures and projections. There's quite more. We also look in terms of the beneficiaries of the study. These are people who will benefit from the study. The findings will benefit. For example, this could be something such as it will benefit retailers. If the study is about retail stores, it will benefit advertisers. If the study is about advertising, it will benefit things such as brand managers. It could also benefit things such as university, if it studies about students and so on. So you must indicate who will benefit as well there. And then there's also a gap. Why is the study being conducted? So usually research gap, even when you write your research proposal, you need to illustrate or to show this aspect. What is the gap that you find in the literature? What is missing in the literature? And why is you conducting the study to fill that gap? For example, this could be a knowledge gap. A knowledge gap, it will be whereby something is unknown or it has not been proven before and so on. It would also be a practical gap. There are 6 gaps actually in research. So try and research or search research gaps. It will show you those gaps and how you write them down. Just to illustrate here, a gap here could be something such as no study has been conducted. This will be a knowledge gap. No study has been conducted regarding, and then you specify the topic. Maybe, for example, the study regarding COVID-19. If there is no study regarding COVID-19 that was conducted, or in South Africa, it's also a geographic gap. It's not always no study, even few studies also works. Because if there are few studies, you're still trying to reach the gap there by adding your study. Under research objectives, just gonna share only 3 items that I know they are most important as well here. So under research objectives, we usually look for the structure of the objectives. So firstly, it's primary and secondary objectives. Are they listed? Do they start with the way to? Are they written correctly? Are they clear and so on? That could be to determine, to examine, and so on. We have research questions included there. Are they written correctly? Are they based on previous research as well as hypothesis? Can evaluate each of these. For example, if one hypothesis is not clear or it's not written correctly, for example, it does not show an assumption or it does not illustrate, or it's written as an objective or as a question, you can rate that and say, or if they are not written at all, you can indicate that they are not written. But what the important thing is that if something is missing, for example, you will have to actually propose it. Propose a missing element. So what this is mean is that maybe, for example, you will indicate here that the authors did not provide or provide secondary objectives, which is bad. Secondary objectives based on the abstract following are suggested, to show that you understand as well what needs to be done. For example, you will say to determine, and then you list the objective that you think needs to be there as well. In terms of the citation, this is based on TUT guidelines. So there's a second book that you need to download, but I think under research methodology as a module, these last two, you should be able to do them based on what you learn there. But what is important here is that we use TUT reference style. So for example, if you go to, you can even search it on Google, it should be easier for you to find it. TUT citation guide. Excuse me. So the citation guide, it has quite some recommendations and guidelines that you should follow when you reference. So once you have downloaded it, you'll have to read it and see actually how it works. I will just share the couples that I know. For example, if you write a sentence or you reference someone and you include them first. So what it means is that if you include the person first as part of the paragraph or part of the sentence, this will be, for example, what we've done there. it must show a page number. I know that it says author surname, bracket, year, page. If you cite person with a within let's write it differently. If you start a sentence with citation, and then I know the bracket will come here, and then will be author's name. So you should show that you are able to understand the guidelines as well. Author's name by comma, yeah, and then there is that, and then there is page. If you end a sentence, that is part of the guidelines. Let's illustrate further using an example here. Here it will be something such as Mahlangu, the article published maybe in 2021 on page 57. Indicate that they are, and then you continue your sentence. You can see I started with the author, and that's how you reference that. But if you end it with the sentence, so you can just write your sentence. That could be, for example, the sentence will be that they are, okay, let's continue that sentence. They are 8 marketing mix elements in digital marketing. And this sentence is coming from Mahlangu 2021 on page 56. The page number is not indicated. You also indicate that, okay, the authors did not indicate the page number, but TUT requires the page number. That will be if it's an article. If it's a website, obviously you won't be able to see the page number. So make sure you're also able to look in terms of those references and citations and compare them with the full list of reference. In the full list of reference, you'll be able to see if it's a website or it was adapted from an article. Okay, this one will come under second example because this is where we at. Surname page, if we end with the sentence, that's what it means there. And then there is also an issue regarding the sources must be up to date, meaning that you can also check that less than 5 years, it's up to date sources. Less than 5 to 10 years. Some guidelines, they also talk about 10 years. Up to date, less than 5 to 10 years. So if you find a list of references and the citation, they talk about articles published in 2004, you also review that and say some sources are outdated. This include this source and this source because it's more than 10 years ago. So you look in terms of that as well. There is also something important about the sequence of those sources. You'll find all this in the citation guide, sequence of authors or citation. So the sequence, for example, this could be sequence. Okay, before we come to sequence, because this one is building upon sequence, let's start with the number of authors, use of et al. It's also part of the citation, use of et al. If there are 4 or more or 3 or more. I think it's 4 or more. The citation guide will guide you regarding that. 4 or more authors. So instead of listing all of them, they just list the 3 and use the word et al. So let's use some practical examples for this as well. So if an article was produced by Ro Mahlango, Lebesi, that's one that I know. And let's put someone else. Let's see, maybe it's Deloitte. And was published in 2010. And there's page 45. Instead of writing all authors, because there are 4, it means they should be written, they use weights of et al. Like that. There is also another rule here that everything that you write as et al, first time you use it or first time you reference or you cite those authors, you indicate all of them. But the second time in the same abstract you talk about those authors, you use the word et al. So first time, it's also another rule. First time indicate all. So I'm just giving you a homework here to find out regarding TUT citation guide whether it also says when you use them for the first time, because the Harvard method, it says you must indicate all of them first time. And then in the second reference citation, you use the word et al. So it doesn't matter if they are 10 or they are 15 or they are 7. In the first time you, in the top of your abstract or first page or where you reference them for the first time, you will indicate all of them. Maybe on the second page, if you're still citing them, then you use the word et al. I'm not sure about TUT citation. Actually, I'm sure. I'm just giving you a homework. You have to find out if it wants that as well. So in terms of the sequence, like for example, here we started with Rose, followed by Mahlango, Levisi, Dutoit. So there are 2 sequences we talk about here. There's a sequence of authors, like I've mentioned, but like I'm referencing here, whether it should be alphabetically. You should find out that. There's also another sequence of many authors at once. For example, this one came from this article. Let's say this one comes from another article. Then it's 2015. And then let's say you also reference another article. So let's say this is one sentence. Okay, let me rather put it here. Don't want to confuse you. Let's do it separately. Let's say we write according, okay. Let's say we write the following guidelines are used to propose a research topic. So if we have to indicate where did we find these guidelines, if they come from various authors, let's say they come from this article, we will say they come from Roux et al. There is always a full stop after that, et al, sorry, et al. And then this came from, so the use of commas and so on, it plays a role. Let's say from page 45. And then we've got another author as well. It also came from Denise. This was published in 2015 on page 6 maybe. And lastly, it also came from a different author as well, because we also use this reference style where we have one sentence referencing many authors. It also came from, let's say, Wanenberg, and he published this article 2020, page 8. So the sequence, meaning that does this article be written first, or Dennis should come first, or Wanenberg should come first? The sequence, it could be maybe alphabetical, depending on the citation. Right, whether it's alphabetical, whether it's by year. For example, what we see here, I think it's by year, although I just do it by randomly. For example, 2010 came first, followed by 2015, followed by 2020. If it was alphabetical, Dennis will come first, followed by Roux, followed by Wanenberg. So depending on what it says, by year, it could be ascending, descending, meaning that the new year comes first. So there's quite a lot that you need to be able to, let's say, postgraduate students, to understand in terms of citation and references. Okay, I think here I've shared more than enough, but you'll get quite a clear picture once you have read the citation guide. Maybe now it's downloaded. Okay, now we have it here. So once again, you don't want to read everything. You want to just read about the citation here, how it should be. Obviously, all your research projects at TUT will want you to use this citation. For example, if I'm referencing a book, you can see here it talks about 3 authors or more authors. Some of these things I've highlighted so far. So the nice thing about it is that it gives you practical examples, how you should do it. For example, you can see there that that's the TUT one, and it also follows the TUT reference style. And those are the examples that I wanted us to go through. For example, it tells you the page number is not used. Some guidelines will say they will use the word P, but TUT does not use P, so it shows you how to use that part. You can see some of the things I've illustrated here. For example, if the author's name does not form part of the sentence, that's when I said you ended. All information is placed in brackets. That's why you see Morton in brackets. But here you see according to SWOT 1989, SWOT is not in bracket. So you'll only be able to evaluate that article correctly once you have read everything thoroughly. In the list of references, the TUT style, there's a couple of things that we know as well that we can share here. For example, they must be in alphabetical order. We know that surnames of authors must be written in upper cases. We know things such as double space, before year, and what basically means. Okay, I'll quickly use one of the sources here. Is it double space? It's just one space there. You can see here it's written in alphabetical, in upper cases and so on. The use of italics and so on, you also have to highlight that as well. Name of journal. Written in italic. Once again, once you have actually mastered those two documents, the first document being the one about written by Coetzee on the guidelines, like what do you include under title and so on. Once you have mastered that and you have mastered the TUT one about citation, that's the only time you should start doing the reviewing and write your motivations. And then just make sure you also rate. Don't forget to rate in the assignment so that I can see how much you rate that one. If you feel like they've done a bad job here, rate it as well. Because without ratings, I won't be able to mark. I will only see this, you're gonna lose marks. So make sure everything is rated as well. So that is section A. And in section A, you'll be based on this research proposal. Let's come to section B now. Develop a research proposal on any topic of your interest using a template illustrated in the study guide, page 9. We've went through those guidelines already. So there's a couple of things that I must be specific that are not needed for this assignment, but the rubric. So refer to the rubric for this one. It will tell you what you need to write about. Let's do it practically. If you look in terms of the assignment rubric, which is here, if you go up, this is the assignment rubric. The difference here is that you are section A, you are reviewing an article. When I mark, I'm going to look at your review and your motivations, and I'm going to allocate your marks here. If you did it well, I'm going to put very good and so on. And then section B, you are developing a research proposal abstract. So you already have an example of a research proposal abstract in the assignment itself. This is the one that you reviewed here. So what you need to do when you develop yours, I only need you to indicate or to actually write about these elements. You will see you're not getting marks for things such as methodology, ethical aspects, and so on. So don't write them down. If you write them down, I won't penalize you. You can include them there as well, but I won't mark them. I'll only mark up until research objective and aims. So let me illustrate what I mean so that it's crystal clear. You will see I'm expecting you to have a title that I will evaluate. I'm expecting you to have a background. After you develop yours, I'm expecting you to have a rationale because it's part of the rubric. I'm expecting you to have research purpose, but in the rubric, there were no marks allocated for methods. So there is no need to continue. You don't have to include the methods and materials of the study. But all these things, this is what you should learn under stats as well as under research methodology. So that's why I don't include them in this module. The module digital marketing or applied digital marketing, it will help you with the literature review. And then I would also evaluate things such as the reference. So you must show your references. You must include at least 10 references. Actually, every sentence that you write should be referenced. You have an example here. You can see that every sentence is referenced, meaning that it shows that it's coming from somewhere. So this is an example of a research proposal or an abstract that you need to do as part of your assessment too. So I'm busy marking assessment 1. So next week, while you are submitting assessment 2, we don't have class. I will see you the other week. But before I end the lesson here, Are there any questions? Okay, if there are not any questions, that brings us to the end of the lesson today. I only wanted to discuss assessment 2, how you're going to do it. So in the chat box here, before you leave, just show your presence or your status if you are happy with an emoticon, happy face, sad face, and so on. So we are done with class. I will see you the other week. Enjoy the weekend and goodbye.